I gather it can be described, is often now described as far right to express concern about the grooming gangs themselves. How on earth did England get to the point where expressing deep concern about the plight of really large numbers of relatively poor, I suppose you'd say, girls were so badly harmed, so badly abused? You ask questions about it and eyebrows aroused because you sound right-wing and Islamophobic.
It's definitely, at its root, it is about radical progressivism. It is about the obsession of the elite class with protecting the emotional safety of minorities, which basically defines progressivism in my mind. They are so obsessed with protecting and promoting racial, sexual, and gender minorities, protecting their perceived emotional safety, that they will ignore, play down, and attack anything that violates that view that minorities are virtuous and the majority is to be treated with suspicion and contempt. It is really touching on that notion of sort of hyper empathy. And the problem is...
But what about hyper empathy for the girls, many of whose lives have been, I would imagine, irreversibly damaged by what they experienced? And you're not talking about just a few hundred. You're talking about how many? Tens of thousands?
I know, hundreds of thousands, John, hundreds of thousands. We have one MP who estimates since the 1980s, you could be talking about 1 million children being assaulted and raped. So, well, the answer is it violates the left progressive worldview because these white working class girls are belonging to the majority group and they are not considered to be as virtuous, as morally righteous as minorities. That's the reality. And it's compounded by the fact that the Labour Party draws most of its votes, the vast majority of British Muslims are voting for the Labour Party, a party that is now losing a lot of seats to disgruntled Muslim voters over what is happening in the Middle East. And you know, when this scandal was blown open again by Elon Musk, because it first really erupted in 2011 when a couple of journalists began to talk about it, even though there were people before that, Tommy Robinson, among others, who had been talking about it, and they were swiftly shut down by the establishment. When journalists first started talking about it in 2011 and the scale of it became apparent, people started to have a look. But just to give you an idea, even after the Elon Musk intervention in early 2025, when the world became interested in this scandal, only a couple of weeks ago, as you and I are talking now in May 2025, a Labour minister went on a very popular radio show, a BBC radio show. Somebody raised the issue of the rape gangs, and her response, Lucy Powell, a Labour minister, you can find it online, her response was, "Oh, here we go. It's the dog whistle. This is a dog whistle talking about it, as in you're racist if you talk about the grooming gangs." And this is after everything has come out. This is after all of the evidence and the testimony, the court cases, local inquiries. And what's most outrageous for me is even today in 2025, the Labour government, despite knowing what has happened, despite knowing police officers have been involved, despite knowing social workers have been involved, despite knowing we found rape gangs in upwards of 50 towns and cities in the UK, despite knowing all of that, despite victims coming forward, telling us what has happened, how they were passed around from one town to another from the age of 11, were put on heroin and cocaine, despite knowing that, the Labour government still refuses to hold a national dedicated inquiry. What it's doing instead is it's holding 4 or 5 local inquiries where local councils are basically asked to mark their own homework, and the councils that are most likely to have basically presided over some of the most horrific atrocities, areas like Bradford, for example, well, they've announced they're not going to do a local inquiry. Shock horror, because if they did, you know, it would look bigger than any of the other revelations that we've had until now. They've allocated £5 million, John, to look at the rape gangs, again, 5 million. The British establishment just gave £117 million to protect mosques and British Muslim communities from hate. Okay, so these numbers reflect the priority list of the ruling class. And this issue is not going to go away. You know, we've had reliable polling on it from people like YouGov. 75% of Brits say, I want a national inquiry. 77% of Brits say we should deport dual nationals who were implicated in this scandal. And if it's not systemic, when police officers are involved and social workers are involved, and it's taking place in 50 towns, you know, what is it? It's obviously a systemic national scandal. So let's get that inquiry. Let's give it proper funding. Let's give it proper legal power so we can compel witnesses, false witnesses to give evidence, and we can punish people in public positions who were implicated in the scandal and who looked past the scandal. And let's make sure it never happens again. This to me should be a no-brainer for the ruling class, but they are just continuously kicking it into the long grass.